into this episode of the Bear Down Buzz podcast. Myself, Eli, joined by Joe and Isaac. The game that happened that made me so mad, it made me sick. If you can't tell from my voice, I woke up with a little bit of a cold. So bear with me and bear with this Bears offense. But we will get into the negative later on. But first, as we've all kind of calmed down and reflected from this matchup, let's go over some of the positives. Joe, I will start with you first. We saw a lot of good things from Caleb and some not so great things from the rest, but start with the positives here uh, for this Bears matchup against the Colts. This loss, I should also mention.
Yeah. Caleb played, fairly well. I mean, he threw two picks. Both the picks kind of were bad throws. He was late on the first one, and then the other one was a 50-50 ball to Rome that he it was, questionable if he should have thrown it. It was broken up with a really nice play by um the Colts safety. I can't remember his name right now, but the Colts safety. Nick Cross. Nick Cross is his name, I'm pretty sure. Um, but yeah, it was a pretty nice breakup, and then Jalen Jones, not our Jalen Jones, but the Colts Jalen Jones picked the ball off. Other than that, though, Caleb threw the ball 52 times, completed 33 of them for two touchdowns, and doing 363 yards. 363 yards. Um, that's not. I mean, that's one of the best quarterback performances I've seen from a Bears quarterback in my lifetime. Yeah, you can make the argument that that yardage was in garbage time, but like we don't get that. We don't ever get that yardage, even if it is garbage time. And those possessions were really important to the Bears because they were trying to come back into the game. They almost did. They lost 21-16. Uh, there's a lot to take away from the reasons they lost were bad, but like Eli said, we'll talk about that. But Caleb hit on a couple deep balls, which we haven't seen this year, so that was good. He also missed a couple deep balls, which he's been doing a lot this year. Um, he made he was making great uh short throws, which again we haven't seen any short throws this year until this game, which it was nice to see them actually incorporate the short game. Uh, they're still doing screen passes, which is really annoying. We'll talk about that too. Um, they also Caleb also looked like he was just a lot more comfortable in the pocket, even with it collapsing, and he was making more calls at the line. Um, although he apparently sort of checked out of that fourth and goal at the one uh play or option play, which we'll talk about. But uh he didn't have enough time. They got to the line with 10 seconds on the play clock, and there just wasn't enough time for him to audible out of it. But like I said, he did play well. Uh Obviously you don't want to see those two interceptions. He is a rookie though, those are gonna happen. Um I mean, he played, and for all intents and purposes, he played better than Anthony Richardson, which, I think we all expected that to happen. But he played better than Richardson. They just won because the Bears made too many mistakes, and the the Colts capitalized on our mistakes, and they also got bailed out of one of their mistakes, which I'm pretty sure we'll talk about that one too, because that was a terrible freaking call. But yeah, that's my take on Caleb. We are seeing the improvement game to game, which is what we need to see. We just need everything else to come along with it on this offense and not have it be just Caleb. Because if it's just Caleb, sure, that's good. We need to see good quarterback play, but like that doesn't really do much if your whole offense doesn't do anything else.
Yeah, that basically you summed it up perfectly, Joe. Everything about Caleb. Um, it's pretty obvious, I feel like for most fans when you're watching the Bears team and you see that Caleb isn't the primary problem. I don't even think if he's a problem at all right now. There's so much other stuff that we're gonna get into later. I do want to bring out a stat that he was 14 of 18 in the fourth quarter, and we had a really good fourth quarter up until that strip sack by Leatu Latu, which was unfortunate, but I feel like for Caleb, he didn't really sense him at all. And I don't know why we're having Cole Kmet guard Latu by himself out there when we have, it's just so much questionable play calling during the game. It was super frustrating, but I'm super excited for Caleb Williams because he has been steadily improving each game. I mean, to go from 93 yards to I forgot how much he had last game. It was like a little bit under 200 to now 363. It's good. I don't want my quarterback throwing more than 50 times a game, and there's a reason why he threw more than 50 times a game, which we'll get into. I just want to ask you, Eli, what are your thoughts on Caleb Williams and his performance on Sunday against the Colts?
Yeah, so I'm totally with you guys. There is a lot of positives to take from this matchup in a game to where, and again, we're gonna get into the bad stuff, but in a game where there was a lot of offense for the Bears, this should have been a game that the Bears took handily for as many yards and as everything that went right for the Bears that went wrong for the Colts and vice versa. But I think we've seen the progression, as you guys kind of mentioned, through 3 weeks at a pretty rapid rate. I did see a thread on Twitter, Isaac, that you posted on where we were talking about uh, Caleb throwing for 1 million something yards in week 18 if we're going by the same rate of his improvement through these 3 weeks, if we go by the rate of how he's improved. But um, we're seeing from a rookie quarterback something that's kind of rare is how quick he's getting out the ball. I've got a tweet pulled up here. I think that's let's see, it's from Dave BFR on Twitter. Caleb Williams' average time to throw broken down by each week. Week 1, 2.75 seconds. Week 2, 2.85. And week 3, 2.64. So, for as bad as this offensive line play has been, Caleb knows the situations he's in and is not trying to, well, he is trying to extend plays at times, but for the most part, he is willing to recognize the situation he's in and get rid of the ball on time and deliver to his targets and spread with the weapons that he has through this offense. But he's had a really quick time to throw. Another thing I've got here from, I'm not sure who this is on Twitter, but it says Caleb Williams had the eighth highest yards per attempt. 8.7 was the eighth highest graded QB on play action dropbacks this week. So that's another thing that this Bears offense needs to start playing to his strengths are these bootleg plays, play action, move the pocket, that kind of thing. But um, as Joe kind of mentioned, another big thing was the deep ball accuracy is steadily starting to improve. And I think after that first touchdown throw to Rome, he started developing that confidence, and you kind of saw him develop that swagger, and he felt more comfortable taking those shots downfield. Again, there were some misses, as we've mentioned, but that connection to Rome Odunze was on full display. And again, for as low of points as the Bears scored, for a rookie quarterback and a rookie wide receiver to be on the same page in the first 3 weeks bodes well for this development of this offense. Again, it struggled through the first 3 weeks, but those are some of the things that he's really improved upon through the first 3 weeks. And again, judging by the rate at which he's improved, it's only going to get better. So it was a tough loss, and we'll kind of get into that as we transition here. But um, there are some positive things to be said about this matchup. Now, I think we should get into the negative bits. I'll kind of start this off. I will say that I think I have found the connection here for the issues that the Bears have had in the run game. And I think it boils down to Chris Morgan, who we've kind of mentioned before, offensive line coach for the Chicago Bears. But something I wasn't aware of until this week was that he was also promoted in the offseason as the offensive run game coordinator. So I think this connection you can kind of make between the disconnect between Shane Waldron and Chris Morgan and this Bears run game as a whole kind of boils down from that. Now, obviously, you can't make that the main reason that this run game isn't working for the Bears, but it has to have some stock because this Bears offensive line struggled last year and it did improve steadily a bit through the last few weeks of 2023. But for him to get a promotion for simply taking a bad unit into a below to average unit, I think was a mistake by this Bears coaching staff. I think if we kind of want to get back to where we need to be, maybe keep Chris Morgan at offensive line coach, but give the run game responsibilities to Shane Waldron or maybe the running backs coach if that's what we need to do. But I do think it is somewhat significant that this we're seeing a Bears running back room struggling to get this run game going in years prior to where, and this is so Chicago Bears for us for this to happen to us. In prior years, when it's been a heavy passing league, the Bears have been a good run team. And now, through the first 3 weeks, it's been a run heavy league, and the Bears aren't able to run the football. It's so Chicago Bears, and I hate to say that because I don't want to make fun of the team, but I can't make it any clearer that it's just something so Chicago Bears to happen. So, um, Isaac, I'll go with you if you want to comment on the Chris Morgan thing, or if you have any other thoughts negatively that this Bears offense has, or this Bears team in general has kind of faced in week 3.
Well, first you brought up a extremely good point that I didn't really know about Chris Morgan being promoted to the run game coordinator. Yeah, it's pretty obvious at this point that Chris Morgan is a problem, especially with I've noticed too, most of the coordinators were fired last year. I believe only Chris Morgan stayed on offense. On the defense, I think the linebackers coach stayed, but besides that, everyone was it's basically an entire new staff, coaching staff. Um, but I mean, one thing I do want to highlight is the signing of DeAndre Swift. I mean, it's just to sign a running back to almost 8 million a year, and for him to be as disappointing as he's been is just it's like it stings because there were so many good running backs out on the market. I mean, we were in the mix for Saquon, and we have good running backs already. I mean, Khalil Herbert and especially Roshan Johnson, they could get the job done. And for this team to take 3 games to realize that maybe we should mix it up in the backfield is pretty. It's just I don't know. I can't even explain it. It's pretty agitating, but I also want to bring up something with Swift that he's carried the ball 37 times and he's only got 68 yards carrying the ball. That's an average of 1.8 yards per carry. So yes, like the offensive line is a big problem. I do really think the offensive line has a lot to work on, but it's also been kind of on Swift because he just doesn't have the vision. And I watched Theo Ash. He's pretty like he criticizes Swift a lot. And I've seen videos of people on TikTok where they talk about Swift and they pause the video and they say, okay, what lane do you think Swift is gonna be in? Go through the open lane or the where it's all stuffy in the middle, and he ends up going through the stuffy lane, or he'll just run completely vertical to the side. And I don't know. I mean, compared to Swift's 1.8 yards per carry, Roshan Johnson averaged 3.8 yards per carry on only 8 carries this season. So maybe we should give Roshan maybe a couple more carries, right? But besides that, like there's got to be something big that happens, not just a little change where we put in Matt Pryor instead of Nate Davis. It's got to be something bigger. I don't know. I don't know if firing Shane Waldron right now is the right move because I don't know who else we would hire or promote. Um, but it seems like Shane Waldron isn't any better than Luke Getsy, and we're gonna have to figure. There's gonna be something. I think that this coaching staff isn't capable of developing Caleb Williams, and it's pretty apparent. A lot of people have been noticing this. Um, and a lot of the blame also should be shifted to Ryan Poles because Poles had the option to fire Eberflus during the offseason and hire a offensive-minded coach to help develop Caleb Williams, and he didn't do that. And as a result, we're seeing this team that can't even run the ball against the worst run defense in the NFL. We're seeing a team with 4 offensive linemen on the ground on 4th down. I don't know if you guys saw that picture, right? Where like all 4 of them were down except Matt Pryor. But yeah, I mean something's got to change. I want to ask Joe, what are your thoughts on this malfunctioning offensive line and the
Okay,
offense as well?
okay, I will I want to start with Chris Morgan, real quickly. You guys did a really good job of covering him. There's just two more stats that I kind of want to bring up. So last year, the Bears had the second best offensive, not offensive, but run game in the league. They had 2,399 yards rushing, with 1,742 of those yards coming from the running backs. So I think so. The reasoning why they probably uh promoted Chris Morgan was because of that running game, which makes sense because they had a good a good running game. Now their pass protection last year wasn't the best, and it's still not the best this year. They have in 3 games allowed 13 sacks and 42 quarterback pressures. That's not a I mean, a lot of that came against the Texans, who have really good edge rushers, but still, that's not how you successfully develop a quarterback. You can't have people in his face all the time. Um, but yeah, it's definitely on Chris Morgan for this how bad this offensive line is playing in the run game. I like what you said about Swift. I mean, before the season started, I've said this before, but like before the season started, I was like, Swift isn't going to be what you think he is. He was only so good last year because he's behind the best offensive line in football. When he was in Detroit, you saw a lot of what you're seeing in Chicago. Him not really knowing where to go, him not being able to break off big runs. He's not a guy that could break tackles, so he's not going to create like that. He's quick and shifty, but when you don't have a line to block for you, being shifty doesn't do you any good because you can't, spin move or break someone's ankles when they're on you right away. You need to be in open field to do that. Um, I agree with Isaac that we should definitely run with Roshan a lot more. He did really good on Saturday and only, or sorry, he did good on Sunday with only 8 carries. Like Isaac said, he rushed for 30 yards, which was a 3.75 yards per carry average, which was the best on the team. He beat out DeAndre Swift, who had more carries, beat out Khalil Herbert. Just use him more. He could break tackles. He get you where you need to go. Like make him. It's weird because we just spent all this money on Swift, but make him the starter. Maybe he could wear down defenses, and then you put Swift in, and maybe then he can use his quickness and shiftiness to get us uh more of those more of those yards that we need, more of those explosive yards. Um, but moving off the run game, I know we kind of uh praise Caleb for completing the deep balls, but Shane Waldron, he calls way too many deep pass concepts. It's just you can't do that. I mean, it was a little better this week. Like I said earlier, they had a couple more concepts that were short and easy completions for DJ Moore, for Caleb Williams and DJ Moore. But a lot of the stuff he does is deep. And if your run game isn't working and you don't set it up with short intermediate stuff first, that deep stuff just isn't going to work. And it doesn't seem like he understands that. I think what a lot of people are saying is he's trying to get too fancy because he wants to get an, a head coaching job. But like, you're outthinking yourself. You have to do the easy stuff first to make sure you could do the flashy and cool stuff afterwards. Setup. I mean, setting up the run game seems to be hard for the Bears, but in the past game, like do the short stuff, do the intermediate stuff, and then the deep stuff will open up because their safeties and cornerbacks will be coming down, thinking it's going to be short or intermediate. And then you could take the top off the defense, hopefully. But what he does is it seems like he sends everybody 10 to 15 yards deep every time, and then no one's underneath for Caleb to throw it to, and that leads to there being pressure and sacks and the coverage just holding up. It's not going to work. I mean, it worked for a couple times today on Sunday. They did have, like I said, they did have like fifth, like I think 5 to 10 to 15 completions underneath, which is better than they have had all year, which is good. But they also ran screens, which we were here with Getty last year. They ran, I think I counted like 5 or 6 screens, but only like two or three maybe worked. When they don't work, if you go run 3 screens and they all don't work. Why are you going back to them? There was like a bubble motion pass to DJ Moore on the 4th and 1 that worked. That really wasn't a screen. That was just DJ Moore in open space, and he was able to juke out the cornerback. Everything else, like, was every other screen pass didn't work almost. And why were you running them if they're not working? Stop running screens. They're not working. They're just making you lose yards, which is putting Caleb in worse positions. So stop doing it. And then, yeah, we'll talk. I'll leave it there for Eli, and then we'll come back in a minute. But I have more to say about specific plays, but that's generally what I feel about the offense.
I am 100% with you when it comes to the passing concepts, and this has just been the theme for Bears offensive coordinators for however many years. The thing with screen passes, just to kind of add a little bit to it, is the past few offensive coordinators that the Bears have had an obsession with screen passes, and it's okay to run a screen once in a while, but it seems like every OC we've had in the past few years runs them at the most random and inconclusive times to where it just doesn't they don't do anything to set up the screen pass. It's like run on first down, pass on second. Oh, we're in 3rd and long. We've lost 7 yards. It's time for a 3rd and 17 screen pass that loses 5 yards. And it's like, if you're going to run the screen pass, you have to get the run game going. You have to make the defense aware of the run game and make them fear it to get a screen pass set up. And that's just never the case. But overall, offensively, just Shane Waldron's whole ordeal right now just doesn't make any sense. And I think it's a matter of personnel usage, and he's still trying to figure out who belongs where and what works best with the players that he has. And I think you kind of saw him finally adjust a bit, just to give him a little bit of credit, even though there is still a lot to work on. We saw Cole Kmet get involved as we had been hoping and praying for. I think that was a career high for him in receptions. I think it was 10 for like 90 something yards. So yes, please continue to feed Cole Kmet in this offense, because that's your safety net for a rookie quarterback, is your tight end. Go to him. He's a top 10 guy. He was paid like a top 10 guy. He needs to be on the field. Use him as much as you can. But just kind of offensively, everything's kind of a mess. And Joe, I didn't know if you had anything other to add. I had another topic to switch to, but if you've got more offensively, then we'd love to hear it.
No, I think I know where you're going. If you're going to the whole goal line situation, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, go for it. Then that's completely where I was headed. So let the people know. We've all seen the clips, and we saw it firsthand. So let them have it, Joe.
Okay. Oh my God, this was terrible. The Bears had 1st and goal from the 5-yard line. They ended the drive. They ended this, giving the Colts the ball back on the 12-yard line. So they, on 1st and goal, they ran a direct snap to Khalil Herbert. He got 4 yards. That's fine. Cool. That's good. It worked. Then on 2nd and goal, give me a minute. I'm going to pull up because I don't remember off the top of my head, I don't remember the direct stuff, but I can easily find it.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how that sequence go. I think it was Herbert on first, and then second down.
Yeah, give me a second.
I'm not 100%
I should
sure
have
who
had
got
this up
that.
beforehand, but
No, you're all good. We're all a mess over here in Chicagoland right now, so it's completely understandable. I'm trying to think also of who that might have been.
It was 4 consecutive handoffs.
Yeah.
And the 4th down
Here it
play
is.
was the
So
one
I
that
got it.
was controversial.
So 2nd down was a run up the middle with Herbert, which from shotgun. So I have to also say first, 2nd, and 3rd down were all from shotgun. So the 2nd down run was a run up the middle with Herbert. I would have rather used Johnson on that play, but Herbert got 1 yard. Then 3rd and 1 was a shotgun run up the middle again with Herbert. Didn't work. They had DeAndre Carter blocking on that play. He got blown up. If you're gonna run up the middle on third and goal at the 1, I don't know why you have Carter in there. Use it. Bring tight ends in. Bring Komet, and I think Komet was on another side. But bring Mercedes Lewis in. Block with him instead. I know he's had 2 bad games. He's had 2 false start penalties, which isn't like him, but still, he's a better block. He'll give you better blocking than DeAndre Carter will. He just will. And then 4th and goal from the 1. They ran from the pistol formation, a option play, speed option, whatever. That's an option play you wouldn't see. Is speed option. They ran speed option from the 1-yard line on 4th and goal. This is a play that you never see in the NFL because it doesn't work. You see this in college football with lesser programs, not like big schools. You see it in like a BYU game or whatever. But you don't see this with big schools. You never see this in the NFL. It doesn't work. They ran a speed option. They lost 11 yards. Apparently, there was a check out of this speed option. But the Bears didn't get to the line until 10 seconds on the play clock, which doesn't give you enough time to switch the play. And you're putting a lot on Caleb's plate here. You shouldn't need to call a timeout. If you see that they're not matched up correctly and you see the play clock, you as the coach, you have to call that timeout so we don't run that play and lose 12 yards. I don't care. You don't run that play. You see you see the field. You know not to call that. You know not to run that in that formation because you practice it all week in a formation. I'm talking purely on the coach standpoint right now. You practice against one formation. They're not in that formation. All the time out. Your quarterback is a rookie. He's hopefully going to be great one day. But at this point, he cannot take all those responsibilities on himself. You have to, as a coach, be better, call that timeout. And it sounded like from his press conference yesterday that he was blaming Caleb for that play not working because the reason we know there was a check was because he said there was a check in his press conference yesterday. And instead of taking the blame himself, he was like, Caleb could have done better. Now, he didn't exactly say that. Obviously, you're not going to blame your player directly. But he was like, there's a check for that. We could have gotten out of it. No, don't stop blaming your players. You have to take responsibility for a bad play call and the fact that you didn't call the timeout to get out of it because you knew they weren't in the correct formation. And it was just a bad play. Why will you ever run that? I don't know. Like I said, on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and goal, you should have ran the ball 3 straight times up the middle with Roschon Johnson. And if you don't want to run it all 3 times with Roschon Johnson up the middle, run a QB sneak one of those plays. One of those things has to work. If it doesn't work, it just shows you how bad your offensive line actually is because you need to be able to score from the 1-yard line. That's it. Isaac, Eli, whoever wants to go can go.
I just want to add really quick to what you were saying, Joe. You have a really good point. And your guy, Nicholas Moriano, he was interviewing Coleman Shelton after the game, and he asked about that, like what was going on and the method behind the 4th and 1 play. And he literally said, obviously, it wasn't the greatest look to run that. And if your center is saying that, like why? Like I'm pretty sure Matt Eberflus knew about Shelton saying that. And I understand Shelton hasn't been the best player, but I do value, if I'm a coach, I do value my players' opinions. And if they believe generally, I feel like the whole like team believes that they probably shouldn't have run that play. And I did see somewhere else, I think Waldron was the one that was saying this, but they were basically saying like, oh, on film, the Colts defense reacted a different way than what actually happened during the game. But that doesn't matter. Like it's pretty obvious that you shouldn't run a speed option play on 4th down with Swift 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And seeing that play happen live, I was so frustrated. I don't even know. That was at that point I was like numb to it. I was like, oh, that was so Bears for them to call that play with Swift. And I don't know, Eli, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so we're all in agreement. This is mind-numbingly frustrating. That play in particular to have watched for what had been a pretty promising drive to kind of put this game back within reach. Obviously didn't happen because we decided to run speed option to the left with what's his name? DeAndre Carter out to lead the charge, and that obviously did not work out. So again, back to the personnel usage for Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus, and nobody seems to be on the same page yet. Listening this morning to Cap and J Hood on ESPN 1000, they brought up they actually brought Matt Eberflus. They interview him every Monday at like 8:20 or so, and they were talking to him, and they asked him about that play in the checks specifically, and I think it was David Kaplan that asked head coach Matt Eberflus, does Caleb Williams have the do you give him the responsibility and then I guess permission is the word to use to use those checks and audibles and do that as a rookie? And Matt Eberflus kind of dodged the question and basically said the answer was no. Uh, so that's something to keep in mind. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but it seemed damning that Matt Eberflus kind of dodged and poked his way around the question. Another thing that he has been saying a lot throughout the preseason, training camp, the first 3 games, he's used the word execution, and he's said it over and over. And we're back to the days of head coach isms, that just annoy the crap out of you. But my thing is as a head coach, if your players aren't executing, then what have you done to help them execute better? That is your job as a head coach, whether it's your offensive coordinator not knowing his responsibilities, you not knowing what to do with timeouts, challenge flags. We've seen over the last however many years with Matt Eberflus that in crucial moments, he is not the guy that you can rely on to make the right decision. Whether it's him or his offensive coordinators, it just has not been there. And so this is another question that was brought up by Cap and J Hood this morning. Obviously not with Matt Eberflus on the air, but they posed the question to all of the audience through the first 3 games and how he was kind of last year. Is Matt Eberflus back on the hot seat? And I wanted to ask Joe first. Do you think we're overreacting as a fan base to what we've seen through 3 games and through Eberflus's career? Do you think that Matt Eberflus is back on the hot seat?
I do not think we're overreacting. I think he should be on the hot seat. You brought up timeouts. He called 2 terrible timeouts this week after challenging 2 terrible plays last week. They wasted a timeout on after they scored in the third quarter because they weren't ready to go for 2. They were really going to send they originally sent the field goal unit out. Then Matt Eberflus. Well, what happened was I think Richard Hightower said 1. Eberflus said 2. They didn't know what they were doing, so they called a timeout. But some of the blame does go on like Caleb and Rome for the celebration. But this was a good point brought up by Hogan Johns and a bunch of other people. If you're going for 2, you tell them beforehand. You tell them before the drive even starts that you're going for 2, so they know that you're going for 2, and they know that they need to cut the celebration short and get back to the line to go for 2. They didn't communicate that. Well, as we say apparently, but they didn't communicate that because if they did, that's what would have happened. But they thought they were kicking a field goal, which didn't happen, and they wasted a timeout, which they could have used in the fourth quarter. On the last drive, even though the Colts ended up getting a first down. If the Bears had another timeout, it could have maybe went a little bit different. Who knows? But then he also wasted a timeout in the first half too. I don't remember exactly what that one was because the second one was way more egregious. But yeah, he wasted timeouts this week, which we needed. So I definitely think after how the first 3 weeks have happened and last year, how bad he was in situations last year that he should be back in the hot seat. Honestly, I think someone said it earlier, maybe not, but he probably should have been fired at the end of last season. But Poles and everybody in the building seems to love Eberflus, even though he hasn't gotten wins. And some of the games they were supposed to win last year, he blew. I mean, it's all again, that was not all on him. Some of it was on Fields. But like the defensive part, like Cleveland, definitely that game was definitely more on him than it was Fields. I mean, Fields didn't play well, but like his defense let up those points at the end of the half, end of the fourth quarter. He dropped Justin Jones into coverage for no reason, and then ended up screwing, giving the Bills a not Bills, sorry, ended up giving the Browns a touchdown drive. So like he's had best situational play calling. He's shown this year he's been better adjusting, but he's shown he isn't good at challenging. He's not. He has trouble taking timeouts with his timeout usage. So like, yes, he's back in the hot seat. I honestly like. I don't know if I want him to stay after this year. He's going. I think it's better for Caleb if he stays, but like, I don't want him to stay just because I don't believe that he will lead us to a Super Bowl ever. He just doesn't seem like a good. A, he's a good defensive coordinator and a good defensive coach. He's not a. He's maybe borderline good head coach. He's never going to be a great head coach. I don't believe. It's just not what he is. He can't. He need. He. I think he should be back in the hot seat, but that's just my opinion. I don't think he will be though. Is that's the correct answer? Is that he isn't, but he should be.
Yeah, Joe brought up a lot of good points. I'm gonna be pretty blunt with when it comes to Matt Eberflus. I do think that he should have been fired during the offseason because I really wanted my rookie quarterback to be paired up with the offensive minded coach and to just get a fresh restart. And unfortunately, that's not the case, and he ended up staying. If you asked me this question last week, if he's on the hot seat, I would have said no because I would have been like, it's only been 2 weeks. We played a really good Texans team. You're asking me this question this week, however, after the Colts game, definitely on the hot seat. I just like Joe said, I don't think Matt Eberflus is the type of coach that will ever take the Bears to the Super Bowl. He is by far the worst coach in the NFC. It actually makes me really jealous to watch the other three NFC teams, NFC North teams, with Matt LaFleur, Dan Campbell, and Kevin O'Connell. They really know how to bring out the best in their players. I mean, the Packers, as much as I mean, we're Bears fans, but I really give credit to Matt LaFleur for keeping the Packers competitive, no matter if it's Malik Willis at quarterback or Jordan Love, whoever it is. Dan Campbell, it seems like the players really rally with him, and the same thing with Kevin O'Connell. Uh, Honestly, I think Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores are the best head coach defensive coordinator combo in the NFL right now. They've been killing it for the Vikings. So yeah, basically, I think Matt Eberflus should be on the hot seat. I don't know if he would be fired in the offseason, because Brian Poles did mention like he wants continuity with the coach and the quarterback. He doesn't want to constantly have a new coach or a new quarterback. But I think something I do want to bring up is I'm pretty sure at the end of the season, everyone's gonna know that Caleb Williams is a really good NFL quarterback, and he's not the problem in Chicago. And I'm pretty sure everyone's gonna be really adamant that Matt Eberflus is not a good NFL coach. So if Poles doesn't fire Eberflus either now or at the end of the season, then I'm gonna start looking at polls and be like, okay, maybe we have the wrong GM because for all the good things he's done, it seems like when it comes to hiring coaches or finding offensive linemen or signing certain free agent players, it just hasn't worked out. And I do love Ryan Poles. I think he's really helped this team. But if we can't win, then what's the point of all of this, you know? And Ryan, I mean, like, we just haven't gotten the results we wanted Last season, you could blame a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on, but this season, I definitely think we should have started 2-1, and we're 1-2 right now. And if we go in next week losing to the Rams, it's gonna be really uh just really bad on Bears Twitter. Everyone's gonna be calling for everyone to be fired or get rid of the whole team or whatever. But what do you think about all this, Eli? Especially with Matt Eberflus on the hot seat or not?
Again, we are in total agreement because at the end of the day, when you're looking at what a head coach can and can't do, more times than not, Matt Eberflus has done what you cannot do. And whether it's polls or Matt is making these decisions when it comes to hiring coordinators, um, nothing has gone right. So we saw the debacle last year, earlier in the year. We don't need to go into details on that whole situation, but it was just a complete mess. And the only saving grace for Matt Eberflus last year was that they faced a gauntlet of bad quarterback play. Now this defense is talented. Don't get me wrong. We're all in agreement with that, but going on a bit of a run and finishing below 500, when you kind of look at it now, it seems like, okay, why did we make this decision? Whether it was the locker room respecting Matt Eberflus and appreciating the culture he's brought, um, on the defensive side of the ball, again, something to keep in mind, that has not translated offensively, whether it's production or just whatever from the offensive line or the receivers, everything in between. So at the end of the day, you just have to ask yourself, does my head coach give me, what does my head coach do that separates himself from the rest of the league? And is there anything that he does to where he is going to be the reason you win football games? And I cannot think, aside from just that Titans game in week 1 this year, to where he has been the reason that the Chicago Bears win a football game. So I definitely do think he's back on the hot seat. I think, again, we're all three in agreement with this. And Isaac, you did bring up a great point with Ryan Poles. He has done a lot of great things, but at the end of this year, there's going to be some decisions that may seem tough to others and may seem easy to us, but going into an offseason where potentially you're going to have guys like Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, and all of these great offensive minds that are going to be looking for these head coaching jobs, you really have to keep in mind what it is you want from a quarterback as talented as Caleb Williams. Do you want him to suffer through this regime as they kind of bobble their way through an offense throughout 17 games? And again, we've seen progression, but will it be enough? And will he develop bad habits? Will he lose some of the characteristics that make him a great prospect? And I wouldn't take that gamble if I'm Ryan Poles in this front office going into next year. So I think he is definitely on the hot seat. And you brought up another great point going into next week. It's going to be a coaching battle because Sean McVay is one of the best head coaches in the league. And he took down a 49ers team that was pretty banged up also, but he won that game. The Rams won that game because of coaching and the coaching staff. So that's something you have to keep in mind. So absolutely, Matt Eberflus is back on the hot seat. Joe, I know you had something you wanted to mention, so I'll toss it back to you.
Yeah, real quickly, we should have mentioned this earlier, but when we actually talking about the game, but we didn't because it just went over our heads. But I want to real quickly talk about the no call on or the blown dead on our fumble and how there was two vastly different plays, and it's bull crap. It's just bull crap. They protect quarterbacks so much. It's not okay. So the Bears had a sack fumble from Montez Sweat that got called back because apparently Richardson was in the grass. And yet, if you listen to the replay, you can hear a whistle, but it wasn't loud. It wasn't really loud, and he was fighting forward. That shouldn't have been blown dead. He was still fighting forward. He's a big guy. Yes, they do it to save the quarterback from himself, but no, he's fighting forward. Let the play go, because later in the game you had a running play that ended up in a rugby push for a touchdown with Jonathan Taylor. Now, that happens all the time with running backs, But my point is, in this game in particular, if you're going to call it one way, call it one way. Because Taylor's progress was 100% stopped. The only reason he got in was because of the lineman pushing him. And on the other hand, Richardson's progress was not stopped. He was still going forward, and the ball got knocked out, and it wasn't taken away from us. That would have been a very big play in the game. The Bears might have gotten a touchdown from that turnover. Who knows? But that didn't happen. And furthermore, like on the quarterback point, the Cardinals, I know we're not Cardinals podcast, but the Cardinals got screwed out of a touchdown, a pick six at the end in their game in the second quarter because of the 2-minute warning had come, and apparently the referees had blown the whistle, or the referees hadn't blown the whistle, but the 2-minute warning had hit, and the play had been snapped like a millisecond, maybe like a nanosecond, just as it hit the 2-minute warning. But Goff snapped the ball. The play was running. The play. What ended up happening was the Cardinals got a pick six, but it got called back because of the 2-minute warning, and also because many people believe that if Goff wasn't about to get hit, or there wasn't pressure on Goff's face, and there was a completion, that the play would have actually, it wouldn't matter, that they would have ran the play anyways. But since Goff was about to get hit and it was a pick six, they blew it dead. Like they blew it dead for the quarterback. It's just not right, man. What happened in that game or the Bears game? They need to. I get wanting to protect the quarterback. They're the most important part of the game, but this isn't it. It's just not it. Isaac, Eli, whoever. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll just say that, officiating and consistency are not two words that I would use in the same sentence. Is all it boils down to. We got screwed, plain and simple, and that's been the case for the last few years. But Isaac, do you have any thoughts on the travesty that was Andrew Billings not getting an interception?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned it on this podcast, but Andrew Billings is probably one of my favorite players on the team. And for him to not get that interception was so devastating. That was probably the most sad play of the game for me, because I wanted Billings to get that interception so badly. It just sucks. Like, the refereeing somehow gets worse every year. And I don't know if you guys watched the Sunday Night Football game, but that no call on Kyle Pitts at the end of the game, where there was the same play essentially last week with the Bengals, and they called that for the Bengals, and it's just crazy because I don't know like what standards these refs have. If it depends on the team, maybe, oh, we're refereeing the Chiefs game, we're gonna make sure the Chiefs win, or oh, this game we don't want the Bears to win. I don't know how it is, but it just sucks. You can't really do anything about it. Every team is gonna get a call that's not fair for them, and it's yeah, it just sucks. I don't know. I hope it doesn't get in the future where we actually are like trying to are in the playoffs or anything like that, and that happens, but it sucks. It really does.
We've talked about just about everything for this Bears-Colts matchup. We've talked officiating errors. We've talked coaching errors. It's been kind of a mess for 3 weeks for the Chicago Bears, but in our next episode, we will preview the Rams and Bears matchup, a head coaching showdown, as we've kind of hinted at through this episode. But before we go, Joe and Isaac, do you have anything else to add? All right. Perfect. Then we will see you next week as we preview the Rams coming to Soldier Field to take on the Chicago Bears at a record of 1-2, a battle of the 1 and 2 teams here. As we close out this episode of the Bear Down Buzz podcast, we will see you in the next episode.